Live from the drama-free true crime destination. No doubts, no delays, just the facts, the fire, and the finality that stands tall. This is the final word. Evening, everybody. Welcome to the final word, our end of the week moment to slow down, look back, and make sense of the stories that carried us here. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. So glad to have you aboard this evening. As always, we're doing this with no noise, no sensationalism, just a clear, grounded look at what happened, why it matters, and what we take with us into the weekend. So let's talk about it. We're going to kick things off with my opening statement. Just give me one moment. Hmm. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to do without the caption then. No problem. I'll just go without the caption. Tonight, as we close a week defined by accountability, not in sweeping gestures, but in the small, deliberate decisions that reveal who people are when the world isn't watching. In courtrooms across America, we saw defendants face the consequences of choices made in silence. A stone-faced killer awaiting judgment, a former cheerleader pleading not guilty in the death of her newborn, a man sentenced for locking children in a storage unit, and a cold case suspect asking for leniency after decades of unanswered grief. We watched a great grandfather fight off an attempted abduction, a school fight escalate into a criminal case, and a high profile defendant abruptly withdraw a motion that could have shaped the narrative around his trial. Each headline is different, but the through line is unmistakable. When the truth arrives, it doesn't knock, it walks straight into the room and demands to be heard. Tonight, we listen and we hold the line. Welcome to the final word, the moment of reckoning. We are going to kick things off in Northport, Florida, where a man claimed his roommate was a burglar after killing her with scissors and golf clubs, and that's according to police. A man is accused of killing his roommate with multiple household weapons and then staging the scene to make it look like it was a break-in. Let's check out the article, and then we're gonna come back to break the whole thing down. A Florida man is behind bars without bond after police say he killed his roommate with scissors, a knife, and golf clubs. 46-year-old Coy Pearson Bothwell is charged with second-degree homicide in the death of 32-year-old Tiffany Scheisel, who had been his roommate for approximately 2 months. Bothwell initially called 911 to report a burglary, but told a very different story when police arrived. Bothwell initially called 911 at 11:27 a.m. on April 5th and told 911 operators that a woman had broken into his home with scissors overnight. He explained that he had delayed reporting the incident because he was in shock. When officers arrived, the victim was obviously deceased and lying on the floor near the front door. When he spoke with officers, Bothwell admitted that Scheisel wasn't a burglar. She was his roommate. Bothwell allegedly told police that he had brief contact with the victim when she got home before he used a kitchen knife and scissors to stab her in the head, neck, and chest. Investigators said Bothwell further admitted to hitting her with golf clubs until they broke and then holding Scheisel down until she died. The probable cause affidavit reviewed by Court TV offered no clue as to a potential motive. Police did note in the report that Bothwell did not make any statements that would establish he acted in self-defense. Bothwell was taken to the Sarasota County Jail, where he was ordered to be held without bond pending a detention hearing on Friday, which would have been today. So yeah, but let's break this down again. And police say a 46-year-old man, called 911, claiming he had confronted a burglar inside his home, but responding officers found his 32-year-old roommate dead from severe blunt force and sharp force injuries. Investigators quickly determined that there was no evidence of a break-in, and the man was taken into custody on suspicion of murder. According to the initial report, the victims suffered wounds consistent with being attacked with scissors, golf clubs, knife, several which were found broken at the scene. Detectives say the suspect's story shifted during questioning, and physical evidence contradicted his claim that he was defending himself from an intruder. So let's take a look at the details a little further. The forced entry claim collapse. Police found locked doors, intact windows, and no signs of tampering, undermining the suspect's burglar narrative within minutes of arrival. There were multiple weapons used. It was a combination of sharp force and blunt force trauma, along with broken golf clubs, suggesting a prolonged and violent assault rather than a sudden defensive encounter. Of course, we get the inconsistent statements. Investigators say the suspect's timeline and description of events changed repeatedly, and none aligned with the physical layout of the home or the victim's injuries. Then there's the roommate relationship. Authorities confirmed that the two had lived together, and neighbors reported recent arguments, though no prior police calls were documented. They're saying the charges are pending, but we've already established second-degree homicide charges. They're saying that there's more charges pending once the medical examiner finalizes the cause and manner of death. Honestly, if this guy doesn't get charged with first-degree murder, honestly, I don't know how else you're going to charge him with second-degree homicide. Just leave it alone, or even lesser included charges like manslaughter or something like that. I'm going to keep an eye on this case, and if there's any more information to come in, you're going to get it here. Next up, Rex Heuermann. After years of denial and legal maneuvering, Rex Heuermann stood before a judge and he quietly admitted to the Gilgo Beach murders, offering no explanation as he closed one of his haunting case chapters. Yeah, let's go right into the article right now. We are now in Riverhead, New York. A man charged in the deaths of 7 women whose bodies were found buried along a stretch of New York's Gilgo Beach showed no emotion as he entered guilty pleas to multiple charges on Wednesday. 62-year-old Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty to the murder in the deaths of 28-year-old Sandra Costilla, 24-year-old Valerie Mack, 20-year-old Jessica Taylor, 25-year-old Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 24-year-old Melissa Barthelemy, 22-year-old Megan Waterman, and 27-year-old Amber Costello. He also pleaded guilty to transporting a body to Suffolk County in the death of an eighth woman, Karen Vergata. He was not charged with Vergata's murder, at least not yet anyway. Each of the victims had been in the sex trade when they died and were found buried along a stretch of Gilgo Beach. No charges have been filed in the deaths of several other women whose bodies were found in the same area. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney offered an overview of the evidence against Heuermann at the hearings, saying prosecutors had amassed 120 terabytes of data, including 7,015 pages of evidence. Tierney went through each of the victims, saying that Heuermann admitted to luring the women with promises of money and strangling them to death. As Tierney listed the crimes, Heuermann could be seen saying yes. Costilla was the first woman to be killed. Tierney said she was strangled and dumped in Southampton before being found by hunters on November 20th, 1993. Vergata was the next target. She was killed in April 1996. Her body was dismembered and discarded in multiple locations. Her skull was found in 2011, and she was not identified until 2023. While Heuermann admitted to strangling Vergata, he was not charged with the murder as part of his plea agreement with prosecutors. Oh boy. Another one? Mack was killed next, sometime between September 1st and November 19th of 2000. Mack was dismembered and her body discarded in two locations along Gilgo Beach. 3 years later, Taylor was killed in July 2003. Taylor was similarly dismembered and discarded in the same general vicinity as Mack. Tierney said that in 2007, Heuermann used a burner phone to arrange to meet with Brainerd Barnes before killing her on July 9th. An online advertisement led Heuermann to Barthélemy on July 10th of 2009. After her death, Heuermann tied up Barthélemy's remains with tape and burlap before dumping her at Gilgo Beach. Waterman was also wrapped in burlap and left nearby after she was strangled on June 6, 2010. The final victim, Costello, was killed on September 3rd, 2010, one day after the pair's previous encounter the night before had been disrupted. Heuermann's ex-wife, Asa Ellerup, was at the courthouse for the plea hearing and spoke to reporters outside. My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families, Ellerup said. Their loss is immeasurable, and the focus should be on them at this time and moment. I ask that you give some privacy to my family as they navigate through this very difficult time. Heuermann's attorney, Michael J. Brown, spoke after the hearing and said that his client plans to cooperate with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit. When Rex decided that he wanted to accept responsibility and didn't want to proceed to trial from a defense standpoint, we then pivoted and did our best to protect his interests, Brown said. Heuermann is scheduled to return to court on June 17th for his sentencing, where Tierney said he is expected to be sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences plus 100 years. Brown said he expects Heuermann to speak at the sentencing hearing. Only 3 consecutive life sentences? First off, let me back. I want to back up a bit and bring a little prop if I can. And excuse me for just 1 minute. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Yeah. Okay. Let me bring this. Let me bring myself back onto the screen just so I can show you something from what the article mentioned. All right. The article had mentioned that prosecutors had amassed 120 terabytes of data. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 1 terabyte thumb drive. 1 terabyte. According to the article, that means the prosecutors had amassed 120 of these, including, again, according to the article, 7,015 pages worth of evidence. That is a lot of work for 120 of these against one man. And then again, on top of it, he's pleading guilty. In a way, I don't blame him for pleading guilty because the evidence is speaking loud. All right, let me break. Here's all the what happened. Long Island courtroom. Rex Heuermann pleaded guilty to multiple counts of murder tied to the Gilgo Beach killings. The plea came after prosecutors presented a mountain. That's that 120 terabytes of evidence. A mountain of digital, forensic, and cell site evidence during pretrial proceedings. Heuermann was once a New York architect with a seemingly ordinary life. In this pretrial hearing, he showed no visible reaction as he acknowledged responsibility for the killings that terrorized Long Island for more than a decade. The judge accepted a plea and Heuermann was formally convicted. The victims' families were present, many visually emotional, as the man long suspected of being the Gilgo Beach serial killer finally admitted guilt. This is a case that defined a generation of cold case work. The Gilgo Beach investigation spanned more than 13 years, involving multiple police administrations, task forces, and public pressure campaigns. Now, my notes saying here, why the plea now? Now, I'm gonna be honestly, why the plea now? Let me show you once again why now. Put yourself in Rex Heuermann's shoes for just long enough. You're being accused of 7 murders when in actuality it looks like 8, but bear with me, 7. 7 murders. You're not saying anything. You're not confirming it. You're not admitting to anything. You're not denying anything. But you got 120 of these saying you did it. Why the plea now? Prosecutors had assembled overwhelming evidence, including burner phones, DNA, vehicle matches, digital footprints, leaving the defense with little room to maneuver. A plea, as much as I hate it, avoids a lengthy, graphic, and high profile trial. Then there's the fact that Rex Heuermann was emotionless. Courtroom observers noted that his flat demeanor throughout the hearing, even as the judge read the names of the victims. Of course, he's he probably showed the same kind of emotion when he committed the crimes. Just saying on that one. The family's reaction is some expressed relief that the legal process is finally moving toward closure. Others said the lack of a trial leaves unanswered questions about the full scope of the killings. So what comes next? Sentencing, of course. Sentencing is expected to result in life imprisonment. Investigators may continue probing whether Heuermann is connected to additional unsolved cases along Ocean Parkway. As now, keep in mind as it stands, when they come to meet again for sentencing, Heuermann is expected to get 3 consecutive life life sentences plus 100 years on top of that. Honestly, he should be. Honestly, if it were me, I would sentence him to 7 consecutive life sentences, one for each of the women that he killed and dismembered. But I'm not the guy. I'm the only thing I'm wearing black is this T-shirt. Next up, speaking of justice being served, the ketamine queen. She's on her way to prison. The woman who prosecutors say supplied the late actor Matthew Perry with illegal ketamine, contributing to the actor's fatal relapse, has been sentenced to prison after admitting her role in an underground network. All right, so let's get back to the article for this one, and let us continue. We're in Los Angeles, obviously. The drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen was sentenced to prison for selling actor Matthew Perry the drugs that killed him. 42-year-old Jasmine Sanga previously pleaded guilty to maintaining a drug-involved premises, 3 counts of distribution of ketamine, and 1 count of distribution of ketamine resulting in death or bodily injury. On Wednesday, Sanga appeared in federal court where she was sentenced to 180 months in federal prison. For years, Sanga operated a high volume drug trafficking business out of her North Hollywood residence, prosecutors said in a sentencing memorandum with the court. To cultivate her business, Sanga marketed herself as an exclusive dealer who catered to the high profile Hollywood clientele. Prosecutors said Sanga worked with others to knowingly distribute ketamine, a powerful dissociative anesthetic, to Perry, a successful actor who publicly struggled with drug addiction. Leading up to the actor's death, Perry was repeatedly injected with ketamine supplied by Sanga. On the day of his death, he was injected with at least 3 shots of the drug, according to prosecutors. Perry had been receiving regular ketamine infusion treatments for depression in the months right before his death from regular doctors, who were not among those charged. Prosecutors said when those doctors refused to give him more, he went in search of other sources. In one instance, prosecutors said Perry paid $2,000 for a vial of ketamine that cost the doctor who had it $12. In the months before his death, Perry paid about $55,000 in cash for the drugs. After Perry's death, prosecutors said Sanga conspired with others to distance herself from the actor, even changing settings on a communication app to automatically delete all her messages. Sanga had faced up to 65 years in prison, but ahead of Wednesday's sentencing, her attorneys filed a memorandum with the court asking for a reduction, citing her guilty plea and acceptance of responsibility. Sanga was one of 5 defendants charged in Perry's death. 44-year-old Salvador Plasencia, known as Dr. P, was sentenced to 30 months in prison after pleading guilty in July 2025 to 4 counts of distribution of ketamine. 55-year-old Mark Chavez was sentenced to 3 years of probation and 8 months of home detention after pleading guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine. 56-year-old Eric Fleming and 61-year-old Kenneth Awamasa pleaded guilty to federal drug charges in August 2024, and they are awaiting sentencing. So let's get down to the details. The nickname matter. Why does the nickname matter? Prosecutors say she branded herself as a go-to source of ketamine, cultivating a client list that included entertainers and high-income professionals. The connection to Matthew Perry is that evidence show she sold ketamine to Perry months before his death. Although the fatal dose likely came from another source, her role in this relapse cycle was central to the government's case. The scope of the operation. Investigators uncovered text messages, financial transfers, and surveillance showing she coordinated deliveries and arranged off-the-books treatments. And the sentencing factors, the judge cited the seriousness of the drug network, the celebrity-driven demand, and the public health risks of unregulated ketamine use. The aftermath. Federal agents say the investigation into other suppliers and medical professionals connected to the ketamine pipeline remains active. And that all that is despite the fact that all those who were involved are either awaiting sentencing or have been sentenced to time in prison, probation, or both. I even though in my heart I can say it's too little, too late, but at the same time I can also say, for Matthew Perry's sake, justice is served. Next up, a man accused of killing a woman on a commuter train is declared incompetent to stand trial. Judges ruled that a man accused of killing a woman on a commuter train cannot stand trial because he is mentally incompetent, halting the case and shifting it into the psychiatric system. So that means that this thing is on pause. It's not dismissed. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. A man accused of stabbing to death on a commuter train last year has been found incompetent to stand trial. 25-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. is charged with first-degree murder in the death of Irina Zorutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who was brutally stabbed to death in an unprovoked attack, on a Charlotte area transit system light rail train. In a filing on Tuesday, Brown asked the judge to delay a pretrial hearing scheduled for later this month in his case. In the filing, Brown's attorney said that the defendant had been evaluated at Central Regional Hospital and deemed incapable to proceed in a report dated December 29th, 2025. The filing also notes that after he was deemed incompetent, Brown was taken into federal custody. In the weeks after the stabbing, Brown was indicted on a federal charge of causing death on a mass transportation system, a charge that could carry a potential death sentence. Brown's attorney said in the filing that because the defendant is in federal custody, no orders to restore capacity can be effectuated. The filing indicates prosecutors have agreed to delay the case due to the circumstances. Video from inside the CATS train shows the victim boarding the train on August 22nd, 2025, and taking a seat in front of Brown. Minutes later, without any apparent provocation, Brown appears to pull a knife out and slash Zarutska in the neck. Brown has a criminal history, including a conviction for robbery with a dangerous weapon. So, as I said, the case is paused, not dismissed. Just because the defendant is finding he may be found incompetent, it stops the criminal proceedings, but that does not erase the charges. This case is still open. The defendant is being transferred to a state hospital or secure psychiatric facility for treatment aimed at restoring competency. Courts typically review progress every few months. If doctors believe he can regain competency, the case resumes. If not, long-term civil commitment becomes possible. Transit authorities and prosecutors emphasize the randomness and brutality of the attack, noting that the ruling does not change the seriousness of the allegations. And relatives have expressed frustration that the case is now in limbo, though they acknowledge the legal requirement to assess mental fitness before trial. This is one of those cases where this man has done what he did, done what he's accused of. He may already have more mental health issues than we all want to think about, and at the same time, he's not all there to be able to say in his own defense that yes, I did it, or no, I didn't do it, to whatever degree he can to participate in his own defense. So we'll just have to wait and see whether they'll try to regain competency or whether he remains committed for the rest of his life. Next up, Tanner Horner. Tanner Horner tells police in an interview that he tried to break the neck of 7-year-old Athena Strand. Yeah. This is in a chilling police interview. The FedEx driver killing 7-year-old Athena Strand admitted he tried to break her neck. A tale that underscores the brutality and deliberateness prosecutors say defines this case. We are now in Fort Worth, Texas. In a recorded interview played for the jury, Tanner Horner told investigators that Athena Strand was a sweet kid. The 35-year-old pleaded guilty to capital murder moments before his trial was set to begin on Tuesday. Now the jury will be tasked with sentencing him as prosecutors asked for the death penalty. Investigators took the stand on Wednesday, detailing the painstaking search for the 7-year-old girl who disappeared on November 30th, 2022. Texas Ranger Job Espinosa, who served as lead investigator, walked the jury through his interviews with Horner, who changed his story multiple times. When he was initially confronted by officers, Horner admitted to seeing the child, but said that he only backed into her with his van. I know that's not factual because based on the two clips I saw, you can clearly see Mr. Horner putting Athena into the van, Espinosa told the jury. The clips he referred to were from surveillance video recorded from inside Horner's FedEx delivery van. Eventually, Horner admitted to his role in Athena's death. She was worried. I was a kidnapper, Horner told officers in the recorded interview. She was a sweet kid. Horner said a little voice in his head told him to hurt her. I tried to break her neck, make it as painless as possible, but it didn't work. She started crying. Horner said, I didn't want her to see it coming. I couldn't take it if she was sitting there in pain. I wanted to do it as quick as possible, but it didn't work. Horner said he eventually used two hands to manually strangle the child and then tossed her head first into a bamboo forest. I didn't check her heartbeat or anything, but I'm relatively sure that she wasn't alive. Horner said he led officers on a search through the bamboo, but nothing was found. The child's body was eventually found 12 to 13 miles away from her home in a river. Espinosa testified that Athena's body was found without clothing. In his interview with police, Horner denied inappropriately touching the child. You're going to ask if I sexually assaulted her, and I did not, he said emphatically. Horner was not charged with any sexual crimes in Athena's case. Espinosa described finding the child's body, saying she was nude beneath the water, face down, with arms at her sides. Horner suggested to authorities that his alter ego may have been involved in the crime, referring to himself as Zero. Espinosa said he was happy to play along. I'd have called him anything as long as I could find Athena, he testified. Horner repeatedly attempted to blame Zero and at one point claimed that if he said too much, quote, Zero is going to hurt me, end quote. Horner's defense said in its opening statement that Horner suffers from mental illness and suffered permanent damage from lead poisoning and his mother's drinking while she was pregnant. Whew. So basically, before I even get to the details, we have a real life version of Randy Orton going on in this case. This man is responding to the voices in his head that told him to hurt this 7-year-old girl, eventually killing her. First, the confession. Horner admitted that he struck Athena with his FedEx truck, but we know that wasn't true. He struck her with the truck, panicked, and abducted her. He told, not accident. Here's why this matters legally. The admission strengthens the state's argument for premeditation and supports the capital murder charge, which carries the possibility of the death penalty in Texas. The reconstruction of the timeline has investigators saying Horner's statements align with the digital evidence, vehicle data, and the recovery site that he directed them to. Athena's disappearance and death devastated the small community, and her family has been vocal about wanting full accountability. Horner remains jailed, awaiting trial. In this case, the penalty phase. Prosecutors have not publicly stated whether they will pursue the death penalty, but the interview details will be central to their case. It is still going. This case is still going on right now. They're still in that penalty phase as to whether Horner will be put to death or spend the rest of his life in prison for the murder of the 7-year-old. When that verdict comes down, I'll be sure to bring that to you. Next up, Karen Reed is back in the headlines again. This time it's her attorneys who reveal police sergeants sent vile messages in a demand for documents. Karen Reed's defense team is demanding new discovery after revealing that a police sergeant sent vile text messages about her, fueling their claim that investigators were biased from the beginning. We're in Plymouth, Massachusetts. We have attorneys have accused a sergeant with the Canton Police Department of sending vile messages and a request for the town to produce documents related to the officer's discipline. 46-year-old Reed stood trial twice on charges she murdered her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, by hitting him with her SUV and leaving him to die in the snow. A deadlocked jury forced the first trial to end in a mistrial. A second jury, however, acquitted her of murder, but found her guilty of driving under the influence. Even with the criminal charges behind her, Reed is still embroiled in two lawsuits. One she filed against witnesses in the case and investigators who said she had conspired together to frame her for O'Keefe's death, and one filed against her by the O'Keefe family, accusing her of wrongful death and infliction of emotional distress. In the lawsuit filed against her, Reed has asked a judge to compel the town of Canton to hand over documents related to its investigation into Canton Police Sergeant Sean Good. Good, who testified at Reed's first trial, was one of the first to respond to a 911 call about O'Keefe's death. He was active in the investigation and was friends with former Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor, who served as the lead investigator in O'Keefe's death. Proctor was fired from his job after texts he sent about Reed during the investigation came to light during the first trial. Reed's latest filings implies there's maybe more messages, some of which may have been sent by Good. According to newly received documents from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, Good and Proctor are close longtime buddies who frequently exchanged vile messages while both served as police officers, Reed's attorneys wrote. The town of Canton is fighting the subpoena, writing in a reply that Reed's request is overly broad and seeks irrelevant information. The town fails to see how any such records are even remotely relevant to the allegations and defenses in the instant action, an attorney for Canton wrote. The current investigation, which did not even begin until nearly 4 years after Mr. O'Keefe's death, does not involve any allegations remotely related to Mr. O'Keefe's death. The defendant and or Sergeant Good's involvement with the investigation surrounding Mr. O'Keefe's death. In their motion, Karen Reed's attorneys point to media reports that Good's placement on administrative leave was linked to his relationship with Proctor. The town acknowledges in the filing that Good was put on paid administrative leave after Reed's acquittal in 2025, but does not specify why. In their reply, attorneys for the town accuse Reed of sharing information with the media, saying immediately after they shared the letter placing Good on administrative leave, copies were posted online. Reed's attorneys fired back in a reply saying it is particularly disingenuous for the town to suggest, without any evidence whatsoever, that Reed would immediately provide documents relating to the Good investigation to the media. Reed's attorneys noted that their client offered to consider confidentiality restrictions on any documents that were released. Reed was due back in court Thursday for a status hearing, and no trial date has been set. Just when you think it's over, Here's the details. First, the defense strategy. Reed's attorneys have long argued that investigators targeted her to shield individuals connected to the home where O'Keefe was found. The newly revealed messages are being used to bolster claims of bias, tunnel vision, and misconduct. Then there's the nature of the messages. While the filing does not publish every message verbatim, the defense describes them as vile, sexually charged, and demeaning, suggesting a personal animus that could have influenced investigative decisions. There's the discovery dispute. The defense says the prosecution failed to turn over these communications earlier, violating discovery obligations. They are now demanding full access to all related digital records. The prosecution's response: they have not yet publicly addressed the new allegations, but they have previously denied any misconduct and maintained that the evidence against Reed is strong. The case remains one of the most contentious in the state of Massachusetts, with intense public scrutiny, online activism, and repeated clashes over evidence handling. A hearing on the discovery request is expected to determine whether additional materials must be produced. And of course, we're going to keep an eye on this particular case as well as it goes to court, and we'll see how deep it'll go, and whether Karen Reed will be vindicated again, or will something change. Next up, in one of the more high profile cases that I'm covering, Shauna Gardner and her husband are getting trial dates for the murder of Jared Britigan. This will finally set the stage for two high-stakes prosecutions in one of the nation's most closely watched murder-for-hire cases. And we're going to Jacksonville, Florida right now with this one. A husband and wife charged with the murder for hire of a Microsoft executive will face separate juries in trials scheduled back to back. Oh, yeah. 39-year-old Shauna Gardner and her husband, 37-year-old Mario Fernandez Saldana, are charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation in the death of Gardner's ex-husband, 33-year-old Jared Britigan. While Gardner and Fernandez Saldana were indicted together and have had hearings together throughout the pretrial period, prosecutors and their defense teams agreed to try the two in separate trials with two different juries picked at separate times. Prosecutors had initially built their case against Gardner and Fernandez Saldana based on the testimony of the alleged triggerman, Henry Tennant. Tennant, who had initially cooperated with investigators and said he was hired to kill Britigan, changed his story and withdrew his guilty plea in February. With that change, prosecutors abandoned their plans to seek the death penalty and changed course to try the couple separately. Fernandez Saldana will stand trial first, with jury selection beginning on August 10th and opening statements scheduled to begin the week of August 17th. The trial is expected to end by August 28th. Immediately following Fernandez Saldana's trial, Gardner's jury selection will begin on August 31st, with opening statements scheduled for September 8th. In an effort to avoid issues of a tainted jury that may have been exposed to Fernandez Saldana's trial, the court will call twice as many prospective jurors as normal to be interviewed for Gardner's trial. Britigan was driving home with his youngest child while prosecutors say he was lured out of his car by a tire left intentionally in the center of the road. When he got out to investigate, Brigham was shot to death in an attack Jacksonville Police Chief Gene Smith described as a planned and targeted ambush and murder. No trial date has been set for Henry Tennant, who has now entered a not guilty plea in Brigham's death. So now, here are the details in this case. We got 2 trials, 2 timelines. Prosecutors will try Fernandez Saldana first, presenting the conspiracy, the financial motive, and coordination with Tennant. Gardner's trial will follow, with the state expected to argue she had motive to tie to a bitter custody battle and escalating personal conflict. Tennant's role remains volatile. The shooter's cooperation has wavered, including a withdrawn plea, complicating how the state will use him in both trials. His testimony, if allowed, will be scrutinized heavily. The judge's earlier warning is looming large here. After calling the prosecution's initial trial plan something that doesn't make sense, the court is now demanding a streamlined, coherent presentation for each defendant. Shared evidence, separate juries. Digital forensics, phone records, financial transfers, and surveillance will appear in both trials, but the prosecutors must tailor each narrative to avoid confusing jurors or prejudicing one case with evidence meant for the other. And the family reaction. Jared Brigham's loved ones say the scheduling brings long-awaited momentum toward accountability after nearly 4 years of delays, reversals, and procedural battles. Whew. We are in for a summer where this particular high-profile trial is taking center stage, and for all of those who are still watching this via court TV, I say get your popcorn ready because this is gonna be a hot one. Next, prosecutors are seeking information on Tiger Woods' prescriptions. Prosecutors are now digging into Tiger Woods' prescription history, seeking records that could clarify what medications he was taking around the time of his crash in Florida. We're in Stewart, Florida right now. Prosecutors have given notice that they intend to file a subpoena to gain access to Tiger Woods' prescription records. The 50-year-old Tiger was formally charged with driving under the influence with damage to property or person and refusing to submit to testing following a crash on Jupiter Island on March 27. At the scene of the crash, deputies reported that Woods denied drinking any alcohol, but said, "I took a few," in reference to medications. On Tuesday, Martin County prosecutors filed a notice stating they would issue a subpoena on April 22nd for Woods' prescription drug dispensary records. The request will include the date and times prescriptions were filled, the number of pills in each prescription, the dosage amount, all special instructions on how to take the medications, and all warnings, including but not limited to operating a motor vehicle while taking the prescription, from January 1st to March 27th. Woods was driving when he crashed his Land Rover SUV while trying to swerve around a Ford F-150 pulling a trailer, investigators said. The crash sent Woods' vehicle off the road where it landed on the driver's side. No injuries were reported. Woods posted an $1,150 bond after his arrest and was released without any restrictions. Shortly after his release, Woods' attorney filed a motion with the court seeking permission to travel out of the country to receive comprehensive inpatient treatment. The out of the country treatment facility recommendation is based upon the defendant's complex clinical presentation and the urgent need for a level of care that cannot safely or effectively be done within the United States, as his privacy has been repeatedly scrutinized, his attorney wrote in the motion. He goes on to say ongoing medical scrutiny and public exposure creates significant barriers to his care and would result in setbacks and an inability to fully engage in treatment. The selected out of the country treatment facility will provide continuous monitoring and the ability to rapidly adjust treatment interventions in a highly controlled environment. The judge authorized the travel, which was not opposed by prosecutors or the bondsman. Woods' next court date is scheduled for May 5th. All right, so now here's what we know. The prosecutors want the records because they're looking to determine whether Woods was taking medications that could impair driving and whether those prescriptions were current, expired, or potentially misused. There's the case of medical privacy versus investigative need. Prescription records are protected, so prosecutors must show relevance and necessity. The request signals they believe the medications may be tied to the circumstances of the crash. The context of Woods' history is that Tiger has undergone multiple surgeries and has previously been prescribed pain medications, which is a factor investigators are weighing as they can reconstruct the timeline. Despite the new request, Tiger has not been charged with DUI or any criminal offense. I know, yes, he has. He's remember he had posted $1,150 bond for this. Anyway, officials previously said that they lack probable cause for impairment. What will happen next? A judge will decide whether prosecutors can access the prescription information. If granted, the records could shape the final investigative findings. Now, I'm a huge Tiger Woods fan, but even is a little unsettling. We'll see what happens as we move forward. Next, the next article I am about to bring to your attention, I am going to put up my trigger warning because I had to read the article before broadcasting it, and it literally disgusted me. All right, so there you go. We're at the bottom of your screen. The trigger warning is scrolling. If if you believe this is going, if you get the feeling that this is going to affect your mental health right about now, I would suggest you all to get off of this channel for for the moment, because this next story is ugly. Okay, you've been forewarned. A 1-year-old boy died after allegedly being left alone for 12 hours, during which investigators say he ate. Hang on a second, guys. Let me try to catch myself here before I go on. During which investigators say he ate cockroaches and ants. A case prosecutors call one of the most extreme examples of child neglect they've ever seen. I can go forward and say that's one of the most extreme cases I've ever heard. And I have not even presented this story to you yet. The child's mother has been charged with 6 counts of second-degree cruelty to children. Okay. I had to stop that. Now, of course, this article is being presented from People Magazine. So if it's coming from People Magazine, you know that the first thing you see is what you need to know. A 1-year-old child died in Douglasville, Georgia, after allegedly being left alone with their 5 siblings with no food for 12 hours, resorting to eating ants and cockroaches. 5 of the 6 children were reportedly left under the supervision of an older sibling who is 10 years old. 10. The child's mother, Sherry Magby, was arrested and charged with 6 counts of second-degree cruelty to children on April 2nd. This story is the reason why I put this trigger warning up. This is one of those stories that will set me off to no end. And I kind of wish my wife was awake right now. A 1-year-old child died after they were allegedly left alone for hours with the 5 siblings with no food, resorting to eating ants and cockroaches. Sherry Magby, the child's mother, was charged on Thursday, April 9th, with 6 counts of second-degree cruelty to children in connection with her child's death in Douglasville, Georgia, according to local outlet ANF. Shout out to them. 5 of the 6 children were left under the supervision of an older sibling who is 10 years old, according to the outlet, citing Magby's arrest warrant. The 37-year-old Magby was arrested on April 2nd, according to jail records reviewed by People Magazine. She's currently held without bond. And for that little detail, I say good. The warrant obtained by ANF alleged that the children were left alone for 12 hours with no adequate food or suitable living conditions. Police found the home had a strong foul odor with unsanitary living conditions, according to the outlet, citing the warrant. Ken Howell with Community Outreach told WSB TV that he wishes he would have known of the family's conditions in order to help the children. All they had to do was come down here, Howell told the outlet. We could have helped them get food. A spokesman for the Georgia Department of Human Services said in a statement obtained by People Magazine, "We are devastated over the loss of this child and extend our deepest condolences to their loved ones. We will continue to fully cooperate with law enforcement as they conduct their investigation." I am going to hit the play button on this video from YouTube and Fox 5 Atlanta regarding this sickening case.
Continue to follow a child cruelty case in Douglasville that involves 6 children allegedly left alone for hours to eat bugs. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us here for 5 News at 5. I'm Tom Haynes.
And I'm Ariel Onstad in for Courtney Bryant. We've told you the mother has been in trouble before. Well, Fox 5's Kevin looking into that history, and he joins us live from the Douglas County Jail. Kevin, what are you learning?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and so we decided let's follow up on this. And what we did is came up with this.
66 pages of court documents details against now 37-year-old Diane Magby, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and cruelty to children in the first degree. It all allegedly happened in the same Douglasville home where just a few days ago, witnesses say an ambulance sirens took a baby away. Douglasville police will not say what happened to the child, and the case is still open. There's been no response from the Douglas County coroner either. This home is at the center of a investigation alleging 6 kids, the oldest only 10 years old, were allegedly left in squalor. According to the same 10-year-old, the kids were left alone for at least 12 hours to eat ants and roaches. These court documents show on the night of July 17th, 2023, one of Magby's sons ran out of the house trying to get away from his mother. It appears the child in the 2023 case was not involved in the latest case because the victim is described as being 15 at the time. Magby assaulted her teen son with cutting him on his back. The arrest warrant goes on to say the mother threw the knife at the teen as he ran down the porch stairs. You should know Magby was out on $10,000 bond awaiting trial on charges when the latest incident happened. A condition for bond was completion of parenting classes. The Douglas County DA asked for the suspect's bond to be revoked, citing not only the latest child cruelty arrest, but a shoplifting arrest last year. So now she sits in the Douglas County Jail without bond.
All right, now we did try to reach her attorney listed. So far, I have not heard back. We're live in Douglas County. Kevin Stewart, Fox 5 News.
Yeah, the charges.
Okay. Let me see if I can finish the rest of this article before I get into my own commentary. Magazine has reached out to the Georgia Department of Health and Human Services for comment. The Douglas County Sheriff's Department is reportedly conducting the investigation, and people has also reached out to them for comment. Let me drop this in real quick, and then I'm going to speak my piece and drop a PSA. The medical examiner concluded that the 1-year-old child died from complications related to starvation, dehydration, and ingestion of insects, which occurred while he was left unsupervised. The investigators described the home as unsanitary, with insect infestation and limited access to food. They say the environment made it possible for the child to ingest insects in a desperate attempt to eat. The mother, she allegedly admitted to leaving the child alone for an extended period, but minimized the length of time. Phone data and surveillance reportedly contradict her timeline. Prosecutors have charged her with felony child neglect resulting in death, and additional charges may follow depending on the final autopsy and investigative findings. 6 counts of cruelty to children, second degree. Community and law enforcement reaction: authorities call the case heartbreaking and preventable, emphasizing the extreme vulnerability of the victim and the severity of the alleged neglect. The mother remains in custody with no bond, thank God. And prosecutors are expected to present more forensic evidence at a preliminary hearing. Let me come up on screen real quick. If it'll let me come up on screen, because I want everybody to see my face and see the rage in my eyes. Okay, here we go. Come on. Come on screen. All right. While I'm waiting for my screen to come back up, I am going to try to put up the caption. There we go. There I am. I want to pull up the caption for the National Child Abuse Hotline, because no one should have to go through that. First off, I want to say that from the bottom of my heart, Sherry Magby is the true definition of a monster. A straight up monster. Who leaves one child, let alone 6, in the home for 12 hours in that kind of condition with nothing but ants and roaches, cockroaches to eat. Only a monster would do that. Only a monster would be capable enough to do something like that. And knowing that she's sitting behind bars right now without bond, I say that right there is justice served in itself. And she hasn't even gotten a trial yet. There is no way possible that she should have any kind of custody of those kids if and when she gets out of jail. If it were up to me, she'd be buried under that prison. But hey, that's just me. That's just me. Now to the PSA. If you or anyone suspect child abuse, there is no sense for that child to be just another victim. It's our responsibility to watch after these children. It's like my pastor would say, whoever gets to them first wins. Let's get to our kids first. You're asked to call the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline. That number is 1-800-4-A-CHILD. 1-800-422-4453. Or go online to www.childhelp.org. All calls are toll-free and confidential. The hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there are those that's willing to help you in more than 170 languages. Let's help our children. Let's show them that we truly value them. They are our future. And no child deserves to be abused or neglected. Again, if you suspect child abuse, call or go online to Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline. Again, that number is 1-800-4-A-CHILD. 1-800-422-4453. Or go to www.childhelp.org. And as for Sherry Magby, I hope and pray to God she gets really comfortable behind those jail cell bars. Because I've got a feeling That is where she's going to end up remaining. No child deserves that. Okay, let's see what I got next on the docket. Oh, this is nice. A 14-year-old boy facing charges after leaving a girl with possible brain bleed after a school fight. Yeah. Yeah, a boy was faced after a school fight left the girl hospitalized with brain bleed, turning a hallway altercation into a criminal investigation. Let me get you back to this article here. All right. All right. Here's what you need to know. This was a fight between students at a Nebraska middle school, leaving one in a hospital. Local news reported the incident was between two 14-year-olds. The male student is accused of punching a female student multiple times, leaving her with significant injuries. The article goes on, a teenage girl was reportedly hospitalized after being physically assaulted by a male student at a Nebraska middle school. The incident happened during dismissal in a Millard Leffler Middle School hallway on Tuesday, April 7th. A spokesman for the school confirmed this to People magazine on Thursday, April 9th. The victim was a 14-year-old girl who was allegedly struck multiple times by a boy of the same age. That's confirmed by outlets KLON and the Lincoln Journal-Star this past week. Shout out to both of those outlets. People magazine reached out to the Lincoln, Nebraska Police Department, but did not immediately receive a response. It shared with Leffler families and People magazine, Principal Suitors said the student was physically aggressive towards another, prompting staff to step in. Neither of the minors' names were released, but local media reported that the male student punched the girl multiple times in the school hallway. Staff connected the injured student with medical assistance, Suitors said. The female student had swelling to her nose and a cut above her eye that required stitches, and may have also suffered a brain bleed, the Lincoln Journal-Star reported, citing police spokeswoman Erica Thomas. School administrators spoke with the police department, and the male student will be facing appropriate school and legal consequences for the incident, per the principal. Investigators interviewed the victim while she was at the hospital. A motive for the assault has not been used. The male 14-year-old who was accused of attacking the female student is facing charges that include third-degree assault, a misdemeanor. That's according to Lincoln Police and local media. Principal Suitors went on to say, "Parents, please help us reinforce our lessons we teach in school. We understand that not everyone is going to get along all the time, but there are healthy ways to resolve conflicts that do not include a physical reaction. Encourage your student to share with adults at school if they are having issues with friends or other students. The statement continued in part. We believe it is important that we repair relationships where they are harmed, and we want to help our students do that. School counselors and social workers are available for students who may have witnessed the assault or felt distress after hearing about it. Ooh. Okay. We're going to go right straight to the details in this story. Reports indicate the confrontation began as a verbal dispute that escalated into physical blows. The girl was struck in the head, of course. While doctors have not confirmed a full diagnosis, early scans raise concern for a possible brain bleed, triggering mandatory reporting to law enforcement. The boy is facing juvenile assault-related charges, which may be upgraded depending on the girl's final medical evaluation. Administrators are cooperating with police and reviewing their own disciplinary process. Additional safety measures may be implemented depending on the investigation's findings. The girl's family is focused on recovery and demanding accountability. The boy's family, however, has not publicly commented. Prosecutors will reassess the charges once the girl's medical team provides a definitive diagnosis. A juvenile court hearing will determine the conditions of release and future proceedings. Now, there's so many ways this could have been looked at, but all of them ending in violence is wrong. So we're just going to see how this case is going to play out. And when I get more information, of course, you'll get it here. Next up, I'll call this my hero of the night. A great grandpa fights off a woman accused of trying to abduct his 14-month-old great granddaughter while on a walk. Yes, you heard right. A great grandfather fought off a woman who allegedly tried to snatch his 14-month-old great granddaughter during a morning walk, turning an attempted abduction into a swift act of protection. Go ahead, Grandpa. Let's get to the rest of this article. The child's mother said he's almost 80 years old and he fought with his life. Go ahead, Grandpa. A New York woman was arrested after allegedly attempting to kidnap an infant from her great-grandfather. 40-year-old Heather Magoni was arrested and charged after being accused of fighting with the 79-year-old and allegedly trying to take the 14-month-old out of her stroller. At the scene, the female was trying to claim the baby was hers and had attempted to remove the baby from the stroller, according to police. She did not see that coming. She did not see that coming at all. A great-grandfather is a hero. A great-granddaughter from an alleged attempted kidnapping by fighting the suspect off. The alleged incident happened just June on Monday, April 6, when he was out for a walk with his 14-month-old great-granddaughter, who he was pushing in a stroller at the intersection of Laurelton Boulevard and West Penn Street. That's according to the Long Beach Police Department in a press release on April 8th. The family chose to remain anonymous, but the child's mother said the great-grandfather was 79 years old in an interview with ABC 7 New York on Thursday, April 9th. First off, we're gonna go right to that report from ABC 7 New York Eyewitness News, and I'm shouting them out right now. WABC TV in New York, my old stomping ground. Let's get to that story.
It started as a leisurely fight to save his 14-month-old great-granddaughter from a kidnapping.
Yeah, the frightening incident took on Monday in Long Beach. Police say the great-grandfather was pushing the little girl in a stroller when suddenly a woman who is a licensed social worker tried to take
The 75-year make it 79 man managed to wrestle the would-be kidnapper to the ground until cops arrived.
Long Island reporter Krista McNally is live in Long Beach tonight, where she spoke to her about the terrifying encounter and her grandfather's heroism. Krista.
Terrifying indeed. It was a very scary situation here on Penn Street and Laurel Boulevard in Long Beach, where that 79-year-old great-grandfather was held on Monday when there was an attempted kidnapping. That's according to the child's mother, who smiled but did not want to show her face. He's old, and he fought. Could have just ended so much worse.
In this exclusive video, just a moment before the attack, you can see the great-grandfather pushing the stroller on a daily walk. Minutes later, Heather Magone, seen here walking behind him and over, and was claiming the baby was hers. The woman started unbuckling the safety strap and tried to take the 14-month-old from the stroller, according to law police.
He said she was like clawing at him and biting him and grabbing him, and he just kept kind of holding her down.
The attack so forceful, Magone was able to rip the covering that was secured to the stroller, according to the parents. Police say the baby's great-grandfather got the woman on the ground, held onto the stroller with the other.
She's starting, "This is my child, this is my child. I have a license."
Mom says neighbors heard the commotion, ran out and called 911. The girl, the parents who rushed to the scene and were reunited with their child, who was unharmed. Magone was then arrested, facing charges for kidnapping in the second degree. The 40-year-old is a licensed social worker in Long Beach.
Hi, my name is Heather Magone, licensed clinical social worker.
She helps people. Others. And then we reached out to Magone's lawyer for comment and have not yet heard back. She was arraigned and held on $50,000 cash or $100,000 bond. And as for the great-grandfather and his great-grand, Mom tells me they're back to their daily walks. That's the latest from Long Beach. Krista McNally, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Wow. Wow, what a frightening ordeal. Chris, thank you.
Yeah, again, police identified the alleged kidnapper as 40-year-old Heather Magone. Surveillance video aired by the local news station showed the great-grandfather walking down the street pushing the 14-month-old in the stroller as the woman believed to be Magone followed closely behind, as you saw in the video. Long Beach police officer Gabrielle Gustafson arrived at the scene within 1 minute of the altercation after dispatch received multiple calls for a male and female fighting around a baby stroller, according to a press release. The great grandfather managed to wrestle the suspect to the ground after she began unbuckling the child from the stroller. He pinned her down with one arm and held onto the stroller with the other. Man, he's almost 80 years old and he fought with his life, the child's mother said in an on-camera interview without showing her face. And it could have ended so much worse. The child's mother claimed Magone was clawing at him, biting at him, and grabbing at him during the attack. A concerned neighbor could also be seen on surveillance footage rushing over to assess the situation. At the scene, the female was claiming the baby was hers and had attempted to remove the baby from the stroller. Police said in their press release, adding that Magone had no relation to the baby at all. After officers arrived, the parents of the child showed up and Magone was arrested and charged with attempted kidnapping. This man was able to protect his great-granddaughter from a violent attempted abduction, but also had situational awareness to hold on to the stroller with his other hand. That's coming from Long Beach Police Deputy Inspector Stephen Chemosky in a statement. Officer Gustafson arriving in 1 minute is an excellent example of our very quick response time here in Long Beach. He continued. Magone, as you also heard, Magone was arraigned on Tuesday, April 7th, held on $50,000 cash or $100,000 bond bail. People magazine was unable to find attorney information for Magone. You heard everything you need to hear, so I don't even need to go into the details for that one. All right. And again, 79 years of age with that go ahead grandpa. Protect your grandchild. All right, next up. Shelby Neely sat stone-faced as the court weighed whether he should die for murdering his in-laws, which is a chilling lack of emotion in a sentencing that now decided his fate. Was it? Let's begin. And we are in Clearwater, Florida. And if I can, oh yeah, let's see how this is set up for. And we are going to go right into the courtroom for sentencing.
Defense has established the existence of 3 statutory and 38 non-statutory. All right, so what we have left are 3 counts. Unimportant, mainly because it is, but I think we have to deal with these costs just because we have to.
Peace, freedom, and joy for so many people, especially the 2 innocent children here who must not ever. So being here today, experiencing her amazing children and making memories with them. She was a very beautiful, kind, and strong mom. She was here raising them and living her fullest life. And the brutal way that her life ended and the lives of her loved ones were taken from everybody left a trauma that ripples through everybody. Every single day. The cruelty of her death is beyond comprehension. The whole is just left is something that we'll never be able to fill. When I stepped in to adopt her children, it was without hesitation. They're a big part of her, and I love them fiercely. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't change everything. We're all healing from trauma that most people can't even imagine. These children watch their whole world collapse. They struggle with nightmares, visions, and a deep sadness that no child should have to carry. I've had to explain things to them that nobody should ever have to explain to a child, and they ask questions that should never have an answer. I find everyday impact of what happened to them, and I carry their pain with me. Every battle is a sense of sleep to them, to show them that they're loved and that people they love aren't going anywhere, and to help them rebuild trust in a world that was so unsafe for them. At least it's unsafe for them by this person whose role it was to keep them safe and healthy. They live with a deep-seated distrust in the world and the people that they love, and the scumbag that was responsible for causing them this pain was their father. There's somebody who's supposed to protect them from violence. I currently alter and rearrange everything, my home, my work, all my plans for the future to create a safe and loving environment for them. And it's on my heart because they really deserve that and more. But the cost of Shelby's actions goes far beyond just this moment of violence. And it still ripples through every corner of our lives and continues to affect us every day. There's really no punishment that will undo this, and there's nothing that can bring back the people that we lost. But please remember that the choice is just end lives. They stole peace and joy for so many people, especially the 2 innocent children here who must not grow up without their mothers or grandparents. A family that should be their support system. As a victim, I want to be clear before the death penalty, not out of revenge, but of necessity for the safety and peace of the children that he left behind. I cannot risk them ever having the opportunity to reach out to them and grow up to twist the truth to their mind or cause more trauma and confusion than they already endured. They deserve a chance to heal without the wind shadow of their biological father trying to re-enter their lives or rewrite history. We are trying to rebuild, and we're surviving something nobody should ever have to survive. The punishment can't bring back our loved ones, but it can ensure that he doesn't cause us harm again. We are healing and growing, but we are forever changed. So please allow me to speak.
Thank you. I'd say anyone. Anything else, ma'am?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
All right. State, anyone else who would like to address the court at this point? No. Right. Very good. Defense, anyone who would like to address the court?
No, Your Honor. Thank you. I just spoke with.
All Any reason I should not proceed with sentencing at this point? Anything else that either the state or the defense wants to say? All right. Well, this may seem like it's very unimportant, mainly because it is. But I think we have to deal with these costs have to under the law. Now, Chapter 775 states that a person who has been convicted of any offense other than a capital felony may be sentenced to pay a fine. So obviously, it's a capital felony, so there's no fines, but there are minimum mandatory costs in every case. So I think they split. So with an adjudication, obviously there's going to be an adjudication here. It's mandatory. We have minimum costs of $368. We also have $100 for costs of prosecution, $100 for the services of the defense counsel. Obviously, seems extraordinarily reasonable in the circumstances. For counts 2 and 3, we have $50 for crime prevention, and the defendant did have the public defender's office originally, so we have $50 for the public defender application fee. Now, I believe the counts 4, 5, and 6 have already been dealt with as far as the sentencing is concerned. I believe the defendant got time served on all the aggravated cruelty to animal charges. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
It was 5 years, which was essentially time.
Oh, okay. So it was okay. So an adjudication 5 years in the Department of Corrections, right? All right. So everyone agrees with that. All right. So what we have left are 3 counts of first-degree murder. The court will proceed with the sentencing at this point. The defense can please rise. I don't think you'll be standing all that long here.
And Judge, in regards to costs,
sure, absolutely.
The Mexican $80,000 for expenses of funeral and things like that. The court would grant that. $7,329 for compensation fund for outpays that were made on behalf of the victims there. $1,103.85 to extradite the defendant here to the Nellis County and the Tarpon Springs Police Department broke down the expenses that they spent investigating the crime, came up with $65,807.23.
All right. The state will just waive all those, but if the defense has no objection, I'll oppose that. All right. Is that correct, Mr. Neely? I don't know if Madam Clerk has the numbers.
That was $30,000 for the funeral expenses.
Now, who does that go to? It has to go to somebody.
Richard Ivanchik is the executor.
Okay. Very good.
And that was $30,000. I had $73.29 for crime compensation. $110,385. That was the extradition. And $65,807.23.
All right. All right, the court finds that the state has established 3 statutory aggravating factors beyond a reasonable doubt for each victim. The court further finds that the defense has established the existence of 3 statutory and 38 non-statutory mitigating circumstances. Weighing the aggravating factors against the mitigating circumstances, the court has carefully and thoroughly assessed the significance of each factor and circumstance. The court is giving great weight to each aggravating factor. The aggravating factors outweigh the mitigators in this case, which, while numerous, do not reach the magnitude of the aggravating factors. The court is also giving great weight to the jury's recommendation. Therefore, the court concludes that the defendant, under the laws of the state of Florida, has forfeited his right to live. Accordingly, it is ordered by the judge that the defendant, Shelby Neely, is sentenced to death for the murder of Richard Ivanchik. It is further ordered by the judge that the defendant, Shelby Neely, is sentenced to death for the murder of Laura Ivanchik. It is further ordered and adjudged that the defendant shall be immediately sentenced to death for the murder of Nicholas Ivanchik. The defendant will be committed to the custody of the Florida Department of Corrections. His sentence is to be carried out as provided by law. The defendant is notified that his judgment and sentences are subject to automatic review by the Florida Supreme Court. Done in order here in Clearwater, Pinellas County on the 10th day of April 2026. All right, I do have a copy for each party of the sentencing order. It's a 21-page order, and then for anyone else who would like a copy of the order, I have copies here. All right, you may be seated. All right, so should I appoint the Public Defender's Office for purposes of appeal?
Please, Your Honor, I was going to ask if you needed to, however, I have filed a motion for the trial, and that was filed either today or maybe yesterday afternoon. Normally the state, I don't know about the state attorney's office, but the state is not trial, and sometimes the court wants hearings, or will just decide merit. I believe the motions have been clear as I've gone through the transcript, including Spencer being and so based on written motion, objections.
All right, well, obviously, I'll take a look at it, and if I think we need a hearing, I'll set a hearing, otherwise I'll rule it, but I will appoint the Public Defender's Office. All right, anything else before we adjourn? All right. Thank you.
All right.
Well, there it is. 32-year-old Shelby Neely pleaded guilty to aggravated cruelty and first-degree murder charges in the deaths of 71-year-old Richard Ivanchik, 59-year-old Laura Ivanchik, and 25-year-old Nicholas Ivanchik, whose bodies were discovered along with their 3 dogs in their Tarpon Springs home 2019. Following his guilty plea, a jury recommended Neely be sentenced to death. Following the jury's verdict, Judge Joseph Boulogne held a Spencer hearing during which Neely's defense attorneys presented evidence of trauma to the defendant's brain, which they said created a propensity for violence. Prosecutors played a portion of Neely's police interview in which he discussed the murders. On Friday, Boulogne formally sentenced Neely to death for each of the 3 murders. Neely had no reaction as the judge handed down the sentence. The 3 Ivanchik victims were each beaten to death with a hammer. Richard and Laura's bodies had been rolled up in rugs, while Nicholas's body was wrapped in a painter's drop cloth. Police were able to track Laura Ivanchik's 2013 Kia Sorento, which was missing from the home, to Neely's home in Ohio, where he was arrested. When speaking with police, Neely confessed to murdering his wife, 21-year-old Jamie Ivanchik, in January 2018 and burying her body in the backyard of their home in Pasco County. He explained that he had spent 11 months after his wife's death pretending she was alive in conversations with her family when her family became suspicious. He said he decided to go to their home and kill them. Neely was previously sentenced to 30 years in prison after pleading guilty to manslaughter in Jamie Ivanchik's death. Her sister, who adopted the couple's children after Neely's arrest, addressed the court during Friday's sentencing. She asked the judge to sentence Neely to death to protect his children. "I do support the death penalty," she said, "not out of revenge, but out of necessity for the peace of the children that he left behind. I cannot risk him ever having the opportunity to reach out to them as they grow up to twist the truth, to manipulate their minds, or cause more trauma and confusion than they already endured. They deserve a chance to heal without their biological father trying to re-enter their lives or rewrite history. Neely did not speak at the sentencing hearing. His defense had no presentation to offer. Neely's attorneys did say that he had filed an appeal. Stone-faced. No visible emotion. Observers noted that Neely remained expressionless throughout the hearing, even as graphic details of the murders were read and family members spoke directly to him. Prosecutors argued that his lack of remorse reinforces the brutality of the crimes. The state emphasized multiple victims, the calculated nature of the killings, and Neely's actions afterward, including using the victims' credit cards and selling their belongings while on the run. Defense attorneys highlighted Neely's mental health history, childhood trauma, and personal struggles, urging the court to impose life without parole instead of death. Relatives described the devastation left behind, calling the murders a permanent wound, and urging the court to impose the harshest penalty available, which is death. And honestly, given everything that I've heard between the impact statement and the judge's ruling, that's justice served, folks. There's no two ways about it. Next up, a former cheerleader pleads not guilty at arraignment for her baby's death. I'll break this down. With what happened at her arraignment. The 22-year-old former cheerleader Laken Snelling, accused of killing her newborn infant, formally pleaded not guilty to a slate of charges, including first-degree manslaughter, abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. Prosecutors allege she gave birth alone at her apartment. The baby was born alive, and the infant later died from asphyxia. Investigators say she then hid the newborn's body in a trash bag inside her closet and attempted to clean the scene before calling no one for help. She remains on bond and under house arrest pending the next court date. Let's check this article out here. We are in Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky cheerleader appeared briefly in court on Friday for the first time since she was indicted last month. 22-year-old Laken Snelling pleaded not guilty to charges of first-degree manslaughter, abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. Investigators say the body of a newborn wrapped in trash bags was found in Snelling's closet by her roommates on August 27, 2025. The roommates, police say, became suspicious after hearing loud noises from Snelling's room. Snelling allegedly told the roommates that she'd had passed out from not eating and would be seen by a doctor. Snelling allegedly skipped class that day, but did not go see that doctor. Investigators say she drove to the university clinic but never went inside. Police say Snelling admitted to giving birth to the child and letting it fall on the floor of her room. She allegedly claimed the child wasn't breathing or alive, but noted that she was only awake for 30 minutes after giving birth before falling on top of the baby. According to filings reviewed by Court TV, police said that Snelling told them that she wrapped the baby up like a burrito and laid next to it on the floor, after finding it to be blue and purple and believing the child to be dead. But officers said that Snelling told medical staff at the University of Kentucky that she guessed the baby was alive and that it made a whimper after birth. The judge accepted Snelling's plea of not guilty on Friday. Snelling remains out on bond. The judge warned her that the same bond conditions that applied before her indictment remain in effect. At the time of the incident, Snelling was a member of the cheer stunt team at the University of Kentucky. She has since withdrawn from the team. So here's the arraignment posture. Her not guilty plea triggers the start of formal pretrial proceedings, including discovery, motions, and potential expert witness filings. The medical examiner says that autopsy results show a full-term live birth and injuries consistent with asphyxia, a central pillar of the prosecutor's case. The defense attorneys did not speak extensively in court, but are expected to challenge both the cause of death and the state's interpretation of her actions after birth. Investigators recovered the cleaning supplies, blood evidence, and trash bag containing the infant's body. The defense is likely to scrutinize the timeline and forensic conditions. A pretrial conference is scheduled for the coming weeks where the court will address motions and set the pace for the case. Now, I know the last time I brought this case up, I said this is kind of reminiscent of Brooks Schuyler Richardson, but I think about it now, Brooks Schuyler Richardson was more fearful than anything else. I'm not getting that same vibe from a Laken Snelling. We'll just have to wait till trial comes around and see how that goes from there. Next up, justice served again. A man is sentenced to prison after locking young children in a storage unit. It's a case prosecutors say reflects extreme and deliberate neglect. Ooh, maybe we'll get to see this sentencing. Ooh. All right, let's check it out.
And as most cases, there are any winners. But in this case, everyone does surely lose. And I'm going to start by using the words of Mr. Ireland, Mr. Dupree's brother, who himself says these children are the ones that are losing. They are missing their father. Everyone loses. Mr. Dupree loses, the children lose, Mr. Dupree's brothers, his sister, his mom, the community, the friends, everyone loses. As the state also said, this is a case of choices that were made. And we have a circumstance where it is true that Mr. Dupree and the mother of his children were going through a financial hardship. That is unequivocally clear. On the night in question, they were at a friend's home. They had been offered to stay the night, and Mr. Dupree made the decision that they would not take that offer, and instead he made the decision that he was going to take these children into this storage area. Despite any offers he might have had. And I don't know if that decision was made out of pride or of issues of power and control. But at this point, it doesn't matter because the wrong choices were made. And we had young children, as young as 2 months old, that faced danger as a result of that decision. And not only did we have those unfortunate circumstances, but Mr. Dupree's did so in violation of the law by possessing a firearm as a convicted felon. He knew he could not have that firearm. He knew not to carry the firearm. He knew that because of his prior convictions, where just like this, had told him what he was prohibited from doing, and he decided that he was gonna do it anyway and violate the law, and that's the number one charge in this case. In reading all these letters that were filed on behalf of Mr. Dupree's, it is true that we have two different people here, the one who makes these bad choices and the other that clearly loves his children. That's never been in question, but who still can't manage to make the right choices for himself and for these and continues to put them at harm's way. These children will suffer, just as the family has noted, because now they don't have a mother or a father, and even worse, they don't have each other. But Mr. Dupree's made those choices. The state didn't make those choices. This court didn't make those choices. Mr. Dupree's made those choices. For all these reasons, the court's going to do as follows. As to count 1, possession of a firearm as a convicted felon, the court will impose 5 years of initial incarceration, 5 years of extended supervision. This is all going to be concurrent to count 2, 1, and a half years of initial incarceration, 2 years of extended supervision, concurrent to count 4, 1.5 years of initial incarceration, 2 years of extended supervision, and count 5, 1.5 years of initial incarceration and 2 years of extended supervision, count 6, 9 months HOC, count 7, 9 months HOC, also concurrent, count 14, 1.5 years of initial incarceration, 2 years of extended supervision, and count 15, 9 months HOC. The court will advise you, Mr. Dupree's, you are prohibited from owning or possessing a firearm, any body armor, or ammunition under federal law. In doing so would lead to further criminal felony charges. Restitution is 0. All non-mandatory costs are 0. Mr. Dupree shall provide a biological specimen for DNA, and he will be responsible for that cost. You are also prohibited from voting until your civil rights are restored. The state have a position as to the no contact order.
We would request that it just follow any family court or DMCPS orders because they're going to actively be involved with the children moving forward.
So this court does not have a standing no contact order, and that's left up to the other courts involved. The court will advise you, Mr. Dupree, that you have the right to seek post-conviction relief, and if indigent, the right to the assistance of the State Public Defender's Office. Anything else from the state?
Will there be eligibility with the substance abuse programming?
Yes. He is eligible for substance abuse program. Anything else from the state?
No, thank you.
Defense counsel.
No, thank you.
Mr. Clerk. The conditions of extended supervision will be as follows. The court will order that Mr. Dupree's attend a parenting class and that he attend the AODA assessment and any treatment necessary, and the mental health and any treatment necessary. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Dupree, I wish you well. I want to thank your family, your friends, everyone who has written and is here to support you today. This is equally as hard for them. So thank you, everyone. Take care. One more thing, my apologies. The credit time is 205 days. Mr. Clerk, if I need to rewrite that, let me know.
I don't know what that is.
I'm telling you to say that to them. I want to.
And there you have that. A Milwaukee man convicted of locking his young children up in a storage unit asked for mercy on Thursday, but the judge ignored his pleas and sent him to prison. 34-year-old Charles Albert Dupree was convicted by a jury of possession of a firearm and 8 counts of neglecting a minor. Judge Anna M. Berrios sentenced him to serve 5 years in prison, followed by 5 years of extended supervision in line with the prosecution's recommendation. Dupree was arrested on September 16, 2025, when police were called to a report of a baby crying inside of a locked storage unit in Milwaukee. When police cut open a padlock to access the unit, they found the children ages 9, 7, 5, 3, 2, and 2 months asleep on a sectional sofa and a bare mattress. There was no light in the unit, and an orange bucket in the center of the space contained urine. Dupree was found outside the unit, asleep in an SUV alongside the children's mother, Asia Zielinski. The couple was arrested together, but Zielinski pleaded guilty to the charges she faced. At her sentencing last month, Berrios sentenced her to a stayed term, meaning she avoid prison. Dupree had also requested a stayed sentence. His attorney noted that he had already served 205 days of incarceration. It's been a hard time for him, Dupree's attorney Anna Marie Winicki told the court. He's had a lot of time to think. Dupree addressed the judge as well, pleading to be released so he can finish parenting classes he's been ordered to take. I just want to be capable of being there for my children, Dupree said. I understand that this situation is very serious, and I understand that it's affected them. My absence has affected them, and me being absent from them would further continue to affect them negatively. Prosecutors described Dupree as having an air of entitlement and said that he has refused to accept responsibility for what happened despite the jury's conviction. This case is not about punishing poverty, prosecutors Tom Hassel said Thursday. It's about holding parents accountable for the choices that put children in danger. On the day the children were found in the unit, prosecutors said that the family had been offered a safe place to sleep and food, but Dupree declined. I don't know if that decision was made out of pride or issues of power and control, Barrios said, but at this point it doesn't matter because the wrong choices were made. Dupree's had previous convictions on weapons charges, assault, and sexual assault charges. So he's going to be serving 5 years plus 5 years of extended supervision for caging those kids in a storage unit. The judge imposed a prison term, citing the extreme risk that the children were placed in and the defense's complete disregard for their safety. Child Protective Services took custody of the children, and a separate investigation is underway to determine whether others were aware of the living conditions. The prosecutors call the case one of the most extreme examples of confinement and neglect they've seen in recent years. 5 years, and the biggest punishment of them all is that he won't have his children. Sounds like justice served to me. That's just my opinion. Next up, Caleb Flynn abruptly withdrew his own motion during a hearing on a proposed gag order. This is a sudden reversal that left the courtroom momentarily stunned and raised new questions about his defense strategy. We are going to Ohio. At a hearing scheduled for a motion requested gag order in his case, Caleb Flynn abruptly changed course and withdrew the request. 39-year-old Flynn has pleaded not guilty to charges of murder and tampering with evidence in the death of his wife, 37-year-old Ashley Flynn. Last month, Flynn's attorneys filed a motion requesting a non-dissemination order in the case, which would have prevented the release of police reports, video, audio recordings, lab reports, written statements, or any evidence or discovery until the case was fully adjudicated. The motion argued that the gag order was necessary to protect the defendant's right to a fair trial after some evidence had already been released to the public and was shared online, garnering thousands of views and comments. Judge Janine Pratt had ordered all parties not to speak about the case pending Friday's motion hearing. But at the onset of Friday's hearing, Caleb Flynn's attorney, Patrick Mulligan, told the court, "It is our intention to withdraw the motion." Mulligan did not offer any further information about why the defense was no longer seeking the non-dissemination order. Pratt asked both sides whether they would be prepared to go to trial currently scheduled to begin on April 28th. Both sides said yes. When asked whether they had other motions to discuss, Mulligan answered, "At this point, no, we haven't found anything worthwhile of filing a motion so far." Caleb Flynn was arrested in February after detectives said he killed his wife with a 9mm handgun and then attempted to stage the scene to look like a burglary. When the defendant called 911, he reported that Ashley Flynn had been shot by an intruder. The defendant, who described himself as a music pastor, appeared on the 12th season of TV's American Idol, but was eliminated in the preliminary rounds. Caleb Flynn is due back in court for a final pretrial hearing on April 16th. One second, guys. Yeah. Here's the details that still is bugging a lot of people. This sudden reversal, the defense withdrew the motion at the start of the hearing, surprising the court. No reason provided, and the judge accepted the withdrawal without any further argument. The gag order or non-dissemination agreement would have restricted public statements from attorneys and parties involved. Prosecutors argued it was needed due to a high-profile nature of the case and the release of body cam footage showing Flynn's emotional reaction. The strategic implications. Withdrawing the motion may signal a shift in defense strategy, possibly to maintain the ability to speak publicly or to avoid restrictions that could limit their narrative outside the courtroom, or as we like to call it, the court of public opinion. Prosecution stance. The state had been prepared to support the gag order, citing concerns about pretrial publicity and potential jury contamination. Flynn remains held on multiple charges, including aggravated murder, felonious assault, and evidence tampering. His next court date, April 16th, his next court date, which will be April 16th, is expected to address pending motions and scheduling. That's the final pretrial hearing. And finally, a woman charged in a realtor's cold case murder is asking for a reduced bond. This is a move prosecutors say ignores the severity and sophistication of the killing. We're in Adele, Iowa for our last story on this docket. A woman charged with killing a realtor found shot to death at an open house is fighting to have her bond reduced ahead of trial. 53-year-old Kristen Ramsey was indicted in March on a charge of first-degree murder in the 15-year-old killing of Ashley Oakland. Her bond is currently set at $2 million, cash only. Oakland was working at an open house on April 8, 2011, when she was shot and killed. In a filing reviewed by Court TV, prosecutors said a witness told officers they heard two loud noises, believed to be gunshots, from next door. When they looked outside, they saw the defendant on the phone, pacing by her vehicle. The witness then observed the defendant back up at a high rate of speed in an erratic manner and leave the area, prosecutors said. No other people were seen at the crime scene, and officers said the doors and windows of the model home where the open house was being held were locked. There was no sign of a struggle at the scene. Police recovered two spent .380 caliber cartridge cases. The detectives with the Des Moines, Iowa Police Department said 5 years ago, on the day marking 10 years since Oakland was killed, they had investigated nearly 900 leads and had contact with approximately 500 people during their investigation. Ramsey was interviewed multiple times over the years. Prosecutors said her statements not only conflict with each other, but also conflict with other witness statements. At Friday's bond review hearing, Ramsey's attorneys called several witnesses to the stand to testify to her character. Among the witnesses was Ramsey's neighbor, Eugene Grell, who said he'd never heard any kind of disturbances coming from the defendant's home through the years. She's the last person in that town that I would think would be involved, Grell said. Ramsey's mother, Julie Boyles, also spoke on her daughter's behalf and told the court that she would be willing to act as custodian for the defendant and have Ramsey live with her. Wow. Prosecutors pressed each of the defense's witnesses on their knowledge of Ramsey's behaviors, specifically whether they knew her to use drugs or have firearms. In their motion opposing a reduction in bond, prosecutors said that search warrants served on Ramsey's home in 2011 and 2026 revealed firearms, illegal substances, and posters threatening violence. Ramsey's defense pushed back, saying Ramsey had nothing to do with the drugs. The judge said he would take the arguments under consideration and issue a written ruling on whether Ramsey's bond will be reduced, likely by the middle of next week. So, the woman accused of murdering a realtor in a long, unsolved cold case appeared in court to request a bond reduction, arguing that her current bond is excessive and prevents her from preparing an effective defense. She was arrested after new forensic analysis and re-examined evidence linked her to the realtor's decade-old killing, a case investigators had struggled to solve until recent technological advances reopened the trail. Prosecutors strongly opposed the request, citing the violent nature of the crime and the years the case went unsolved. So her defense attorneys Ramsey's defense attorneys claim she's not a flight risk, has strong community ties, and needs a lower bond to participate meaningfully in her own defense. They also argue that the evidence is circumstantial and that she has cooperated since. The prosecution's stance is that the murder was brutal and premeditated, involved deliberate attempts to avoid detection, factors they say justify the high bond. They also emphasize the cold case nature of the investigation and the risk of witness interference. The victim, a local realtor, was found dead under suspicious circumstances years ago. The case went cold until new forensic retesting and re-interviews led investigators back to the defendant. The court did not immediately rule on the request, instead taking arguments under advisement. A written decision is expected soon, like I said, likely by the middle of next week. The family's reaction said that the victim attended the hearing and urged the judge to keep the bond in place, saying the defendant evaded justice for years. And that's going to wrap up the docket. Now, before I get out of here, and I say thank you to all of you for joining me on this late night, I am going to wrap this thing up with my closing argument. At the end of a week like this, it's easy to feel the weight of every headline. The violence, the neglect, the choices that shattered families and reshaped futures. But accountability is not the enemy of hope. It's the beginning of it. Because every courtroom that demanded answers today, every judge that refused to look away, every witness who spoke truth into the record, they remind us that justice is not abstract. It is built case by case, voice by voice, moment by moment. And while the people at the center of these stories cannot undo what has been done, the system can still say with clarity and conviction that the truth matters, that children matter, that victims matter, that actions have consequences. So as we close this week, we do not turn away from the hard stories. We honor them by telling them with discipline, with honesty, and with the steadiness they deserve. Because justice doesn't always come quickly. It doesn't always come cleanly. But when it comes, it restores the balance. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the final word. A clear look back at the stories that carried us through the week and the lessons we take with us to the weekend. I want to thank all of you for joining me here. I thank you for taking your time out of your Friday night to join me here with this, and I look forward to doing this again. So until then, I am Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw, and this is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support the channel through PayPal and Cash App. You can get your true crime news right here with no gimmicks, no drama, and no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.